Welcome back to Triangle Minds. In today's video, we'll be talking about an unusual and often overlooked historical event known as the Children's Crusade. The Children's Crusade is often overlooked because it was not a traditional military campaign, and it ultimately ended in failure. Also, it never received the papal approval from Pope Innocent III to be an actual crusade. The participants were primarily young and inexperienced, and they lacked the resources and support needed to undertake such a dangerous journey. Additionally, the exact details of the Children's Crusade are somewhat unclear, and historians continue to debate the extent to which it was a real event or a legend that grew over time. As a result, it has received relatively little attention compared to other crusades, such as the First Crusade, which had a more significant impact on the history of the Middle East and Europe. This event, which occurred in the early 13th century, saw thousands of young children and teenagers ranging from ages 6 to 16 years old embark on a perilous journey to liberate the Holy Land from Muslim control. So, without further ado, let's dive in. The Children's Crusade was not like the other crusades that took place during the Middle Ages. It was a popular movement, fueled by the religious fervor of the time, which saw thousands of children and teenagers leave their homes to join a holy mission. The children were inspired by a French boy named Stephen of Cloyes, who claimed to have had visions from Jesus and believed that he was called upon to lead a crusade to liberate the Holy Land. Stephen is believed to have been born in the French village of Cloyes-sur-le-Loire in the early 13th century. When he was just 12 years old, he began to have visions of Jesus and the Virgin Mary, who spoke to him and urged him to lead a crusade to liberate Jerusalem from Muslim control. According to historical accounts, Stephen claimed that he had been chosen by God to lead a crusade of children and that he and his followers would be granted safe passage to the Holy Land. He soon gained a following of other young people who also claimed to have had similar visions and felt called to join him in this holy mission. In the spring of 1212, Stephen and his followers, who are estimated to have numbered in the tens of thousands, set out on foot for the Mediterranean coast of France. They believed that they would be able to cross the sea and reach the Holy Land, where they would defeat the Muslim forces and restore Christianity to its rightful place. The children were reportedly unarmed, and many of them were barefoot and poorly clothed. They faced many hardships and dangers along the way, including hunger, thirst, illness, and attacks by bandits. Despite these challenges, the children remained determined to carry out their mission and to fulfill Stephen's vision. Stephen of Cloyes was said to have performed miracles along the way, which only increased the children's belief in their mission. According to historical accounts, Stephen of Cloyes, the young boy who claimed to have received a divine vision calling him to lead a crusade of children, was said to have performed miracles during his journey. These miracles were said to have only increased the children's belief in their mission and their devotion to Stephen as their chosen leader. One famous account tells of how Stephen was able to part the waters of a river so that his followers could cross safely. The story goes that when the children reached a river that was too deep and fast-flowing to cross, Stephen raised his staff and prayed for divine intervention. The waters then miraculously parted, allowing the children to cross safely. This story was widely circulated and became a source of inspiration for many of the children, who saw it as a sign of God's favor and protection. Other stories speak of Stephen's ability to heal the sick and to perform other miracles. Some accounts tell of how he was able to restore sight to the blind and to cure the lame. These stories were likely spread by Stephen's followers as a way of bolstering their faith and their belief in his leadership. It's also important to note that there were other groups as well. One of the largest groups of children who joined the movement was led by a boy named Nicholas from Cologne, Germany. Like Stephen, Nicholas claimed to have received a divine vision calling him to lead a crusade to Jerusalem. He reportedly saw a vision of a young boy in a white tunic who urged him to preach to the people and to gather an army of children to liberate the Holy Land. Nicholas was able to gather a large following, and by the time the children had reached the coast of France, their numbers had swelled to over 30,000. The children were largely from peasant families and were motivated by a desire to serve God and to achieve salvation by taking part in a holy mission. When they reached Marseille, they all faced the same grim fate. They found that there were no ships available to take them to the Holy Land. Some accounts suggest that the merchants and shipowners in Marseille may have taken advantage of the children's naivete and exploited them for their own gain. Others speculate that the authorities may have intervened to prevent the children from setting sail, fearing for their safety and well-being. Two merchants, Hugh the Iron and William of Posqueres, offered free passage on boats to as many of the children as were willing to go. The children, desperate to fulfill their mission, eagerly accepted the offer and boarded the ships. However, their hopes were soon dashed. Instead of taking the children to the Holy Land, the merchants took them to North Africa, specifically to the Tunisian port city of Béjaïa. There, the children were sold into slavery or forced into servitude, where they were subjected to harsh conditions and mistreatment. Many of the children died from disease, starvation, or abuse. Others were forced to work in mines, fields, or households, where they were subjected to physical and emotional abuse. In addition to the children who were sold into slavery, many others died in a shipwreck on San Pietro Island off Sardinia during a gale. The exact number of children who perished in the shipwreck is unknown, but it is estimated to be several hundred. Stephen himself reportedly disappeared, and it is unclear what happened to him, and is thought to have most likely died during the journey. In any case, the crusade of children ended in disappointment and tragedy. Like Stephen of Cloyes and his followers, the fate of Nicholas of Cologne and his followers also remains a mystery. There are various theories about what happened to Nicholas and his followers. Some sources suggest that they may have made it as far as Genoa, Italy, where they were either turned back by the authorities or sold into slavery. Other sources suggest that Nicholas and his followers may have dispersed or joined other groups of crusaders. The sources of information on the Children's Crusade come from a variety of historical records, including contemporary chronicles, letters, and other documents written by eyewitnesses, as well as later accounts written by historians. One of the most important contemporary sources is the Chronicle of Alberic of Trois-Fontaines, a 13th century chronicler who provides a detailed account of the events surrounding the Children's Crusade. Other important sources include the chronicles of Jean de Joinville, Guillaume de Chartres, and Ralph of COGGESHALL. In addition to these contemporary sources, later historians have also studied the Children's Crusade in depth. One of the most influential studies is that of the French historian Charles Lefebvre, who wrote a comprehensive account of the Crusade in the late 19th century. Other notable historians who have studied the Children's Crusade include Norman Cohn, Jonathan Riley Smith, and Gary Dixon. Historians have also used a variety of methodologies to study the Children's Crusade. Some have focused on analyzing the political and social context of the time, while others have examined the religious and cultural factors that contributed to the movement. Still others have used literary and cultural theory to explore the meanings and symbolism of the Crusade in the context of medieval culture. Despite the wealth of information that exists about the Children's Crusade, many questions about the movement remain unanswered. For example, it is still not clear why so many children were willing to undertake such a perilous journey, or why they were so easily exploited by unscrupulous adults. Nevertheless, the Children's Crusade remains an important historical event that continues to capture the imagination of historians and the general public alike. And that's it for today's video. We hope you enjoyed learning about the Children's Crusade. What are your takeaways from today's video? If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more interesting content. See you next time.